Fun Home, with music by Janine Tesori and book and lyrics by Lisa Cron, based on the graphic novel by Alison Bechdel, opened April 19, 2015 at Broadway's Circle in the Square Theater. Let's go back to that moment in history. March 3, 2015, Slovenia becomes the first post-communist state to legalize same-sex marriage and adoption of children by same-sex couples. March 4th, scientists report the finding of a 2.8 million-year-old jawbone forming a potential link between the 3 million-year-old hominin, Lucy, and the 2 million-year-old remains of Homo habilis, representing the oldest known human. March 5, 2015. The U.S. Supreme Court schedules cases regarding the bans by states of gay marriage. March 6. Massive snowy traffic jams in Kentucky, one more than 90 miles, strand motorists for 24 hours or longer. March 7, 2015. The U.S. Secret Service locks down the White House after a loud noise, later revealed to be a burned-out souvenir truck, is heard on the South Lawn. March 9th. FBI Director James Comey announces a reward of $5 million for information leading to the return of former FBI agent Robert Levinson, who disappeared while gathering information about Iran's nuclear program. March 10th. The family of singer Marvin Gaye wins a $7 million lawsuit for copyright infringement against Robin Thicke, Pharrell Williams, and T.I., holding that Thicke's hit Blurred Lines resembled Gaye's Gotta Give It Up. March 13, 2015. NASA reports that scientists using the Hubble Space Telescope have found a salty ocean lurking beneath the surface of Jupiter's largest moon. Author Alison Bechdel was born September 10, 1960, in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. The daughter of Helen Augusta and Bruce Allen Bechdel, her family was Roman Catholic. Following her graduation from Oberlin College, she moved to Manhattan during the summer of 1981 and applied to several art schools with an interest to pursue work as a cartoonist. Starting with her comic idea, Dykes to Watch Out For, an acquaintance recommended she send her work to Woman News, a feminist newspaper, which published her work in its June 1983 issue. Dykes to Watch Out For gradually moved from single-panel drawings to multi-paneled strips, as well as developing into a series of posters and postcards, allowing for people to have a look into the urban lesbian community. After a year, other outlets began running the strip. At first, the cartoons consisted of unconnected strips without a regular cast or serialized storyline. However, its structure eventually evolved into a focus on following a set group of lesbian characters. In 1986, Firebrand Books published a collection of the strips to date. In 1987, Bechdel introduced her regular characters Mo and her friends. Dykes to Watch Out For is the origin of the Bechdel test, intended as a joke, which has become a frequently used metric in cultural discussion of film. The test asks whether a work features at least 2 female characters who have a conversation about something other than a man. Some versions of the test also require that those 2 female characters have names. In November 2006, Bechdel was invited to sit on the usage panel of the American Heritage Dictionary. That same year, she published her graphic novel, Fun Home, a family tragicomic, and, in doing so, changed the climate for telling lesbian stories in mainstream culture. She uniquely contributed to shining light on lesbian narratives, and the novel sent shockwaves through the literary world, instantly becoming a top read in queer and gender studies classes. Bechdel's project, with an ambition to bring lesbian stories out of the shadows, vividly recounts her young formative years in small-town Pennsylvania, her sexual awakening in college, and the subsequent suicide of her closeted gay father. Within mainstream culture, as Bechdel describes it, the concept of the butch lesbian has been narrowly defined as a woman who presented masculine characteristics. But the reality is much more varied and multifaceted than that, and the history of the butch's presence in society is complex. The word butch has a rich backstory. In the 1940s, the term was used by working-class lesbian women within their own communities to describe women who, as scholar Gail Rubin notes, identify primarily as masculine or prefer masculine signals, personal appearance, and styles. As with many lesbian, gay, and bisexual terms, there are ongoing debates, but many agree that butch is a gender non-conforming state of mind. butch women have a style, swagger, and confidence that plays with gender expectations and turns those expectations on its head. It's an attitude and a way of being in the world that is strong and independent. By the 1970s, with the rise of the feminist and gay liberation movements, lesbians who identified as butch were marginalized, even within their own community. During the 80s and 90s, butch and femme categories made a resurgence, used as sexually empowering terms that were embraced by the community. By the 1990s and 2000s, butch visibility became much more legible within mainstream culture. The novel Fun Home takes place over 3 different time periods, spanning more than 30 years in the lead character Allison's life, from age 10 to 43. Allison looks back through her memories to better her relationship with her repressed gay father, Bruce, and to try to understand why he didn't leave her mother and come out of the closet. To more fully understand this, we must look at how history and its events shaped the world at that time when Allison was growing up, and how the social time impacted these characters' decisions. Author Alison Bechdel describes herself as a careful archivist of my own life, and true to that characterization, she spent 7 years making sure that each detail she wrote down in her memoir was just right. In Fun Home, the graphic novel, she recreates photos and furniture, transcribes books and letters, and painstakingly recalls every moment of her interactions with her family. She recalled, "A number of people have pointed out to me that the compulsive attention I paid the house while I was doing the book was exactly what my dad had done." She says, "If my details were accurate enough and true enough and I had worked hard enough, then my readers could enter my world without reservation, could trust that I was telling them as much truth as possible." The resulting book is a complex and dense memoir told through detailed illustrations, poetic language, and a winding journey towards Allison's and her father's truths. When it came out in 2006, Fun Home made top rankings across a range of publications and was even named Book of the Year by Time magazine. In anticipation of our production here at Porchlight Music Theater, it's worth noting that Fun Home has taken the theater world by storm since its Broadway debut in 2015. It has been lauded across the board for its innovations of the musical theater form, as well as for its all-female writing team and its tender representation of lesbian and gay stories. But this overnight success certainly didn't happen overnight. The musical adaptation of the graphic novel came out of a nearly 5-year artistic collaboration between 3 brilliant artists. Their long and arduous process spanned time, space, and form as they worked to create the Fun Home that you see today. Alison Bechdel never suspected that Fun Home could have a life beyond the page. Even after she started getting commercial interest, it wasn't until acclaimed playwright and performer Lisa Cron and Tony-nominated composer Jeanine Tesori approached her that she even considered an adaptation. Bechdel recalled, "It seemed harmless enough. I had turned down a movie on the grounds that if it wasn't good, it would be awful to have it out there in the world, this terrible version of my most intimate history. But a musical? I was naive. I thought, if it's a bad musical, it will just disappear." Part of Bechdel's initial hesitation was also about the representation of lesbians in the arts. Historically, lesbians, and in particular butch lesbians, have been reduced to objects of ridicule in popular culture. But Lisa Cron's long history of writing and performing roles for lesbian women, including as co-founder of the landmark Five Lesbian Brothers Theater Company, was reassuring to Bechdel. From the get-go, we had conversations about butch representation and how impossible that has been historically. So we knew that was going to be an issue. And I knew that Lisa would be the person to make that happen, if anyone could. And thus, with Bechdel's blessing, in 2009, Fun Home started its journey to Broadway. It was nothing but problems, Cron said of the adaptation process. Bechdel's novel is not the obvious choice for musical theater. Its nonlinear structure, its visual and literary focus, and its highly sensitive subject matter make it an unlikely candidate. But Cron and Tesori saw its theatrical potential and the too rare opportunity to use musical theater to tell this story, and they elected to take the risk. The musical adaptation was first workshopped at the Ojai Playwrights Conference in August 2009. A staged reading was performed at the Public Theater in 2011, featuring Judy Kuhn and Beth Malone, who would continue in their roles to the full off-Broadway production. The musical had another workshop as part of the Sundance Institute's Theater Lab in July 2012, including Porchlight Music Theater Artistic Advisory Board member Raul Esparza in the cast. On April 8, 2013, musical selections from the show were performed with Maggie Gyllenhaal and David Hyde Pierce, now part of the company, at an event for the Sundance Institute. Unlike most classic music theater, Fun Home's storyline is structured around an emotional journey rather than a chronological one. The graphic novel is filled with thousands of cells that tell stories within themselves. Tesori points out, how is it going to be in a long arc instead of in these little bits and pieces? And how are we going to tell that in a theatrical way? It took the full 5 years to really figure that out. Over the years, they used maps, charts, and index cards to test out different story structures, working to pare down the plot into something that could be performed by one cast and consumed in one sitting. In the process, scenes were melded together, characters were combined or omitted, and details of chronology were smudged, until all that was left was one concise and cohesive act of theater. Braun and Tesori also wrestled with how to portray the complex and subtext-filled emotional lives of Bechdel's characters. Bechdel's caption commentary gives us the subtext, but the creative duo was left to fill in the actual text of the scene. In fact, Lisa Cron says, "There are no scenes in the book of Fun Home. There are moments in time. There's a frame where a kid is eating a bowl of cereal and a parent is leaving, and then you have Allison's narrative voice. That's not a scene." The story has to be told through the actions of characters who are unaware of the defining moment of what's going to happen in the future. What do they do? What do they talk about? Material had to be generated. Helen, who works well as a supporting character in the book, needed more material in order to come to life theatrically. Bruce, whose fits of anger are balanced by stretches of vulnerability in the novel, became disproportionately cruel when his violence was experienced live. Allison, whose lesbian identity is clear in the novel, necessitated an exploration of what it meant to represent a butch experience. Lisa Cron noted, "The portrayal of butchness in the show from the very beginning was something that I was very concerned about how we would succeed at doing it. It's an elusive thing. It's not about maleness, it's something else. If you understand that dynamic, it's very clear to you what it is. If it's not something you've encountered, in my experience, it's something that's actually hard to make clear what it is." In the ballad Ring of Keys, 10-year-old Allison first begins to recognize her own identity as she notices a masculine delivery woman and her huge ring of keys. As young Allison paints a moving portrait of this old-school butch, the butch and all her rich, human complexity springs to life in the imaginative minds of the audience. And in this way, the first mainstream butch anthem was born. Lisa Cron and Jeanine Tesori met the adaptation challenges head-on. Even after a long developmental process, they attended every preview during the off-Broadway run, making edits right up until opening night. Now, as productions of Fun Home echo across the country, conversations like these continue through every directing, design, and dramaturgical choice, including right here at Porchlight. When Bechdel agreed to the musical, she removed herself from the process, ceding any creative control. She had actually nearly forgotten about it until she received a script and CD in the mail. Luckily, she was pleasantly surprised by the end result. That first moment of hearing it, I just felt it was this great gift. I felt seen, she said in an interview. "I think there should be a kind of therapy where people hire playwrights and composers to make musical theater of their sad childhoods." In some ways, comics and musicals feel like a perfect match, Bechdel reflects. "I wonder if it is because of the way the two registers collide. In a musical, you have drama and music. In comics, writing and pictures. They operate differently, but with the same power. The emotional honesty in her captions is reflected in the rawness of the music, the heightened imagery of the drawings comes through in fantastical sequences, and the complex subtext manifests in the contrast between music and text." In a review of Fun Home in its graphic novel form, writer Sean Wisely comments that the true memoirist mission, like the novelist, is not so much establishing factuality as getting to the heart and truth of something. Lisa Cron and Jeanine Tesori took this sentiment to heart in their Fun Home. The script is full of details from Bechdel's memoir, but their music and lyrics allow the emotional truth to take center stage. And anyway, as Bechdel says, "Even the things they made up feel true to me." Fun Home won the Lucille Lortel Award, the Drama Critics Circle Award, Outer Critics Circle Award, the Obie Award, and the Tony Award for Best Musical. It was also nominated for the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. It has profoundly contributed to an ongoing effort to bring the stories of lesbian and gay characters into the spotlight. It has changed the way we think and talk about butch lesbians, and it brings visibility to an important subculture within the lesbian community. With haunting hindsight and arresting contemporary commentary, this groundbreaking, intimate, illuminating story provides us with new perspectives around gender expression and sexuality that open us up to a fuller, more complete understanding of the complexity of the human experience across time and space.